Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We are here to have just a real chat. Oh, Diane's here.
Hey.
And welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Sure, my pleasure. I love this topic.
I know, and you're the pro. So you're the first person who came to mind when I started to get really real in my preparation for what's happening. So, and I do want you to share your background and your context, but, I've been following this virus, the coronavirus, since end of January because I was traveling throughout February. But as a business owner, I didn't really start to think about the impact that it might have until this week, especially Wednesday when the World Health Organization officially called it a pandemic. So you're the first person who came to mind because we met 2 years ago in Italy, actually, at a workshop. And your background is in helping corporate companies plan for moments like this. Contingency planning is the term I keep using. So is that correct? Is that how you would describe your experience?
So I think I come from a long kind of corporate banking career. And I think anybody who's in that is always contingency planning, whether it's your role, it's for a market shutdown, it's kind of like almost breathing in one of those roles. And I think contingency planning is the perfect word for it. I think the word crisis kind of scares people a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think contingency planning is a good one. I think what's interesting though is a lot of the contingency planning at the corporate level doesn't translate down to a small business because that's not where people think about it. We like to veer onto the positivity side of things. So it's been morphing my business experience down into like my small business experience to create this combination.
Yeah. And so that's why you're joining me live we can be positive in a way, but I also want some real talk because from what I've seen over the last week, and maybe you've seen the same, but I've actually seen some fairly irresponsible messages shared from people who are influencers. They have followers and they're sharing information that it's kind of encouraging people to put their blinders on. Maybe they're uninformed themselves. Maybe they don't want to look at the reality of the situation. And so they're just advising their followers to lean into their gratitude or like, I don't know. I don't get it. So I do want to say that there is a difference between panicking and preparation. I'm hardcore in the let's prepare camp, and I think that's you as well.
Yep.
So let's talk about what as small business owners we can do today to prepare for not just a quarantine situation, but maybe over the next few months, there's an economic downturn. Maybe there's a change in, I don't know, industries. So out of curiosity, have you worked with clients before in similar situations like this one?
So I think in corporate, I've definitely been in kind of the crisis situation, not in a pandemic situation, but I was in banking for the Lehman Brothers kind of ground zero moment. I can still remember walking into my corporate job on that day and having to drop everything and how much everything changed after that. Like from a preparation perspective, I would say I don't think we've had as big an event since then.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I think a lot of the influencers are very, if we're just optimistic, don't panic, there's a vaccine coming. Like you said, panic is one thing and preparation is another. And I think it's great to focus on what could happen and how good it could be. But I think there's also nothing wrong with being prepared for it not being like that. And one thing I like to say to people is actually your corona risk was always in your business. All the corona has done is highlight to you that you have this huge risk in your business that you won't be able to work. That could have happened to you 6 months ago with a stomach bug or a migraine or the flu. So while everybody is kind of feeling a little panicky, it's almost like there's not any extra risk to your business than there was yesterday or the day before. So what you do to prepare now is not only for this, like you said, this quarantine, self-isolation, whatever's going to happen, but it's also just preparing your business in general to survive any kind of little blip.
So you're saying people have had businesses today, yesterday, 6 months ago that were never prepared for a crisis, like a health issue or an economic downturn. So I have so many questions for you. I'm like, where do we start? First of all, before we get into the tangible tips of what people can do to create that crisis plan, as you call it, based on your experience and what you're seeing happen in the world, are you foreseeing a potential downturn in the economic world because of this, or is it too soon to tell?
I think we don't know what's going to happen. It's pretty early, but one thing I will say is when you see the markets doing what they're doing at the moment, people get very afraid. People are watching like their retirement values fluctuate. People are, all the things that make them feel secure and safe are being stripped away from them. So they have markets that are volatile. They have illness that they can't control. And actually, like all that toilet paper fighting that we're seeing, that's people trying to control what they can control. And so what happens in that situation is people withdraw. So they stop spending money. They start thinking about what they're spending on, what they could limit, because they don't know what's coming. So that's how they try to like personally prepare. And that obviously then has a big knock on for your business. So we don't know where the economy is going to go. Most people are saying, "Ooh, this looks like it. This looks like the recession's coming." Right. There are some schools of thought that maybe this will be such a big bump that it'll self-correct itself. But I think either way, people are going to be so nervous for a while that we as business owners will be impacted.
Yeah. How does this compare to what happened in 2008 when there was that market crash?
I feel like people are more scared this time because that was almost like a new event.
Right.
And it was kind of like the banks.
Right.
Like the banks needed to sort it. So people were personally impacted because people were out of work and partners were out of work and the economy was going into recession. But this has this personal element of like, not only is all this happening in the economy, but I could be sick during it. I might not be able to work, you know, if there's not statutory sick pay or something like that. People who work hourly jobs or retail jobs or who drive for Uber, like they're just not going to make money.
Yeah.
So it's a super personal, it's not other people don't have enough money, so they can't spend on me. It's like I might physically not be able to go out and earn, even if there is money. So that's a real kind of, it's hitting really close to home.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because what happened in 2008, you're right. It was like, oh, it's a banking man's problem. I don't feel bad for him. But you're right. Now it's, I need to think about my business and its future plus my health. And obviously health is number one out of those things. And because we're dealing with a virus that is so contagious and people might have it right now and not even know. That's what I find irresponsible with the advice that I see people sharing is they're almost saying like to continue on with your normal life. They're saying things like, this is just fear mongering from the media. Don't believe the hype. And I'm like, this is a virus that doesn't care what you think. It can be spread so easily and you might not have symptoms and realize that you have it. That's why this is a pandemic, because it's not been contained. Now they're just trying to mitigate. They're just trying to mitigate the growth of it. And I don't want to get into this tangent, but if you read into it, this is bad because a virus grows exponentially. And that's what we saw in Italy. That's what we, first saw in China, of course. And we've seen some countries react to the containment a lot better than others. And so at 12, I'm going to be speaking with someone who is currently quarantined in Italy. And I'm looking forward to hearing her experience. So going back to, again, I won't go on my rant about the messaging, but I feel so passionate about it because we're talking about people's lives and livelihood, as you mentioned. So your background is in helping corporate businesses. I mostly help online business owners, but I don't think we can forget about local business owners too, people who are running shops, brick and mortar services. So, what can people do today? Maybe they have not done any preparation for something like this ever, but what can they do today to prepare for either that quarantine situation or an economic downturn? What would you say to a small business owner? Let's say someone like myself who's in the online space.
So, a lot of it is kind of common sense stuff, and it's probably stuff that is on your to-do list that you just kind of haven't got to. I would say the number one thing I would start doing right now is, as you are going about your day-to-day, as you're working, start recording what you're doing. And like, say you're uploading a blog post, explain what you're doing. Like, I'm uploading this, I'm changing the image size for this. Explain it so that if somebody has to cover for you, they have access to that. Now, you know me, normally I'm like, I want to see system notes, I want to see a checklist, but we don't have time for that. So at the moment, just document as much of what you're doing as possible. Then batching is your best friend, and so is procrastination. So doing things now as soon as you get them. So if something's important, don't think, oh, I'll get to it next Thursday. Just do it now while you are healthy, while you are not looking after kids or family members.
Yeah.
I think also thinking through your backup plans for everything. You know, Zoom is going to be under a lot of stress with all the new people trying to do everything virtually. So there's a good chance that you've decided to do something virtually, you click on and Zoom's like, no bandwidth. So what is your backup plan for that? Not just for you not being able to be present on that Zoom, but for Zoom itself not functioning. And then I think communication is probably the biggest thing you need to be thinking about in your business. So more is more, early, often. Those are kind of like the communication watchwords. Everybody knows this is happening, so you can acknowledge the elephant in the room if you're running an event, if you've got something coming up, even just if you're dealing with clients one-on-one, say, hey, I'm aware this is happening. If you get sick and you need to cancel, here's how you do it. If I'm sick, here's how I'll let you know. The more information you can give to people, the more in control they feel. And so the calmer they are about everything. And the sooner you tell them all of this stuff, the more empathetic they're going to be. If you are deciding to cancel your event 24 hours before, it might happen, but that shouldn't be your preference. You shouldn't be like, okay, I'm just going to hope and hope and hope and hope. And then people are on planes and you go, okay, I've changed my mind. We're done, you know?
Yeah.
So I think from a business perspective, those would be the big things that I would be looking at.
Yeah.
And also thinking in terms of like all of the things that you do regularly, like your tasks, kind of categorize them into this is vital, this is kind of important, this is a nice to have. And preparing all of this while you are focused and calm and not in quarantine is the time to do it. So when you do focus, then it is just a case of cutting and pasting things or ticking off the quick vital things you need to do rather than trying to figure out, oh, do I need to be on my Instagram feed today?
Yeah. So it sounds like you're generally saying figure out a way to replace yourself from your business as if you did disappear tomorrow. And through that, it's really documenting your processes, using the tools. And you also mentioned something about addressing it with your clients, addressing it with your customers. I think that's such a great point because I still see people posting as if it's business as usual. And I feel for them, like maybe they're in the middle of a launch right now. Maybe they're ramping up for a launch. You know, they have their content plan. But I think this situation warrants pausing and just reassessing, like, is this the best thing for my audience right now? And like you said, talking about it is key. I didn't talk about it until I think Wednesday or Thursday. I was just like, we can't ignore that this is happening. And I would love to hear your thoughts on, do you think businesses should be pausing their regular content or their upcoming promotions? What should they be thinking in terms of that?
Yeah, so I just had this actual question with someone, and what I said to them is like, if what you are selling, launching, producing is coming from a place of service in this environment, in this market, you know, maybe you're a teacher and you're giving homeschooling advice to people, then by all means, people need it and you're coming from the right place. if you are coming from a place of like, it is a traditional launch, or you have a new group or a new mastermind, you need to ask yourself whether people are actually in a position to participate in the way you imagined. And if they're not, whether the best thing to do for everyone is to take one more thing off their plate and push it a little further down the road. I think we're seeing some really sleazy marketing going on at the moment around people actually using almost fear mongering as their marketing tool. If like that is just like, you will lose followers, you will lose email list people will never buy from you again. You know, somebody wrote something really tacky during one of the hurricanes, and I have literally never listened to another word they've said. I've blocked them, I don't even see them. So I always think about that. I think kind of my rule of thumb at the moment for people is be a human. Like, how would you feel in that situation? Do you want to be bombarded with launch emails about something kind of unrelated? Are you even going to read them? Are you just going to get overwhelmed? And I think if you are in a launch, I get it. Like, unfortunately, that the timing is just awful, but that doesn't mean you can't acknowledge, hey, I get it. There's a lot going on. If you don't want to hear about this launch anymore, just click here. Like, give people the option to have a bit of peace of mind. I think also, though, you have to be prepared now with things that you launch, that they might not be as strong as they were. You know, your revenue, economically, people are going to stop spending money. So I think we're going to see launch levels come down. I think we're going to see people canceling a lot. I think we're going to see people kind of getting halfway through a thing and being, oh, I don't want the rest of it. So I think it's, if you stop and ask yourself how you would feel, then I think you're probably on a good path. And I think if there is even an inkling in your body that something you're about to post, say, do is tone deaf to the situation, just don't post it. Definitely, I would say pause, go and check everything that you've got coming up for the next few weeks. And if any of them is like, it could even be remotely icky in this situation, I would err on the side of not posting it. You know, we are still, I think, in the very early stages of it. But, you know, it's important that people understand that people are really, really ill. That a lot of people have died. For some people, this is an incredibly sensitive topic, and their entire feed is full of it. So try to picture that as well as when you're talking to people.
That's such great advice, and brought up so many points in terms of the fine line that, as a business owner in the online space, there's this fine line that's being walked right now by people like myself who help others get started in the online business. And I think it's too easy for people to use this, what's happening right now, as a way to sell their product to get started in the online space. I get that is helpful to people. It's of value. I'm in that same position. I have products that help people get started. But like you said, is now the time for people to be putting money into an aspect of their life that is brand new? They don't have a business. Some people are being forced to not work right now. Some people have children who are home for the next 3 weeks, and they're freaking out because they don't have childcare. So they're choosing between working and making money and taking care of the kids. Like, if you put yourself in the shoes of those people right now, how could you be? It's tough. I honestly don't have the answer, because I, on one hand, totally get, here, I have stuff that helps, but it's a paid program and it's 3 months and it's $2,000. Where I think businesses have an opportunity who are in this space is to offer things for free.
Yes.
Free content, and I'm not talking freebies, like just lead magnets. I saw on my friend Taylor Loren's feed yesterday, she is the marketer at Later. I love Later. And she started a thread to talk about how are we helping, as marketers, what are we doing in our business right now? And someone commented saying, I am emailing my list and I'm offering a free coaching call, all of us to get on, and we're going to talk about how we can manage this as business owners. We're going to talk about our marketing plans. She's literally offering coaching for free. I think that's the right way to go about it versus using this as a time to sell your product that helps people get started in the online business. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely lean towards like, if you genuinely are coming from a place of I want to help people, I think if you have like a $27 product, great. I think if you have a $2,000 product, it's going to be much harder. And I think you're right, like putting yourself actually in that position of like, I don't know how long I won't be able to work. I don't know what's happening with sick pay. I don't know what's going to happen to everything else in my life. That's a really hard sell. Personally, I'm all about the, like, how can I help for free at the moment? I'm a huge believer that that karma will come back to you in spades further down the road. I think one of the interesting examples I've seen is Loom. Like, I have seen that Loom email. Have you seen it? Where Loom Video have slashed their prices, extended their trial periods and everything. And that has been shared. I can't even tell. I've got the email and then I've seen it so many times where people are so shocked that you're prepared to do something for free or what seems against your business in this kind of environment. Whereas I think actually we really need to be, it's not necessarily like our target market are probably not half the people who need our help. We might be targeting people who are in like a normal corporate day job who want to go online. But what about the yoga studio owner who needs to give virtual classes to feed their kids?
Yeah.
And I think we forget that actually the basics of just getting someone online, they probably don't need the full $2,000. Like you said, if you could talk to 100 people for an hour about starting a business, you could probably get half of them at least started on the basics.
Yeah. And I want to shout out a few companies because we're in the online business space. We use tools all the time. And there are many companies stepping up and offering their tools for free to help people in this situation. Kaylee in the comments just mentioned that Teachable is offering some free services. I saw yesterday that Girl Boss is going to put on a virtual conference for women to just start sharing education for people about the online business space. There's Loom, there's Cloudflare, who's emailed me about what they're doing, especially for their customers and clients in Italy, because guess what? Internet usage has gone way up in Italy. So companies that help those sort of things are stepping up to the plate. And I think that's what software and online business tools need to do. As small business owners, we can do the same in our own way. But this does bring up one important question that I definitely want to ask you about. When we're asking an online business owner to put the pause on their launch, put the pause on promoting their paid products, and maybe even serve their audience for free, that might cause a panic for them because they might be needing that revenue. They might not have an emergency fund. So what does an emergency fund look like for a small business owner like myself? And what are the details around that?
So I would say emergency fund. So when you're thinking about, okay, revenue is going to drop.
Yeah.
The first thing everybody should know is their revenue, their costs, and their profit. You need to know how much wiggle room you have between your revenue and your costs. Like, how much revenue can you afford to lose before you start losing money for yourself? Okay, in those costs, you want to add in like your costs to survive as the business owner. So I think that's a good place to start. Then your emergency fund, your rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it, you're looking at like 3 months, ideally 3 months of your business expenses. And the reason it's 3 months, you can say 3 to 6, but basically that would assume you made zero revenue for 3 months.
Gotcha.
In actual fact, as your revenue starts to drop, you're probably looking at your business expenses and maybe going, do I need my paid, super complicated email system? Or actually, is that kind of like, I like to have that, but I could do MailChimp for free.
Yeah.
You start looking at what you could cut in your business if your revenue starts to dip. And then even as business owners, we are often like a big expense and stress to our business because that we need that bottom line to survive. So we also need to take a step back and be like, okay, how can I relieve some of that burden on my business? Like, could I cut some of my own nice to have things at home in order to allow the revenue to dip a little bit by offering these free things? Maybe I sacrifice a little bit on the home front, and I'm talking, maybe you go like a slightly cheaper groceries, or you don't watch cable or whatever it is. Like every person will be different, and then you allow that difference to kind of start to feed your fund.
Mm-hmm.
So if at the moment you've got excess profit, that should all just be going into that fund. If you don't have excess profit, you might want to start thinking about, okay, could I cut something now? As often as business owners, we have too many tools. That would be where I would start. I would be like, what are all the tools that I own, especially the ones I've completely forgotten I have?
Yeah.
How much money is that every month? And then every month put that into your emergency fund. That's probably the easiest place to start, and the place that you won't even feel it.
Mm. Okay, great. So emergency fund should be 3 months of expenses, ideally, correct?
3 to 6 months, including paying you. So that's the thing. I think entrepreneurs forget that they can't just go to zero if everything else goes to zero. If they still need to pay rent, they need to buy food. It depends on what their home situation is. If they could go to zero, fine. But we need to have like almost a salary line in there for how much money you need to take.
I'm looking at your any day crisis plan template right now. I got it last year. So if you're interested in getting some system in terms of what Diane's talking about, head to her profile. You can grab this from her link. It walks you through certain questions you should be asking yourself if you were to disappear from your business tomorrow for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So she walks you through how to highlight what needs attention, what do you need to do, what do you say in case this happens, how do you say it. So I think this is a really great place to start, is this template. I do want to circle back to local businesses. We've mostly focused on online business, and this is out of my realm. I've never run a local business, and by that I mean a brick and mortar shop.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or tips on someone who is running a shop where they're probably seeing a decrease in foot traffic right now?
So I think if they're still service based, they can probably have the same kind of like, make sure somebody else can cover you, make sure everybody's processes, everybody knows everything, make sure you're communicating, telling people especially for in person. Like, I want to know if I'm coming to you as a physio, for example, I want to know, what are you doing? Are you sanitizing the table? Are you making sure I'm not in a waiting room with people? Anything like that. So the communication. If you're more brick and mortar, like I'm selling a product brick and mortar, or it's food or something brick and mortar, one of my local coffee shops did something amazing. I was like, oh, where are the lids? And he went, oh, here, let me put it on for you. He went, we're keeping everything here where I have used all the hand sanitizer so that you're safe and nobody else is touching it. Yeah. And it was just that one little thing that he said to me that I was like, oh, I feel completely fine coming into this coffee shop and getting coffee every day. So I think anything that you're doing, make sure you're telling people. I think also, if there is a way for you to start to think about how you could add an online component to bolster it. And then this is going to be a little unpopular, I think, is there anything else that you can do if for some reason you got into an Italy situation? Because in Italy, it's locked down. The only stores that are open are pharmacies and groceries. Everything else has to be closed. So what other skill set do you have that you could maybe be building a little freelance side hustle?
Yeah,
that could help. I think stores can only communicate, make sure there's hand sanitizer, think through how they're keeping things separate, not letting people touch stuff. I think it's a really, really tough spot to be in for the retail business.
It is. Like you said, do what you can to move your service online. Be prepared with that emergency fund. Get started as soon as you can if you don't have one. It's been interesting since I opened up this conversation, my stories, what people have shared with me in their DMs. And one lady is a teacher in Hong Kong. I think she might be here with us live, Winnie. And so she says she's not seen her students since January 18th. And in that time, what is that? That's almost 2 months. In that time, she's had to learn so much about teaching online. It's put her in a position where that's her only option. We're going to be talking to Marion at 12, who is starting a business as a home stager for real estate, which is an in-person business, and she's in North Italy right now. And so I'm curious to see what her thoughts are. And I'd say Winnie and Marion are both sharing. Oh, there's Winnie in the chat. She's W is for wellness. and she gave me permission to share her story. So thank you for that, Winnie. But with Marion and Winnie, they've both highlighted, wow, being in this situation has really made me think about creating a digital product or creating another stream of revenue. And I'm starting to see some information posted online, and I also want to contribute to this conversation too, in terms of helping people out. But there are ideas on how you can start to scale your business or create other streams of revenue to be digital. So one could be, adding in additional clients, adding in multiple streams of income, and building that emergency fund. Those are kind of the ideas that I've seen populate. Winnie and Marion are both talking about creating a digital product or membership for their services as well. Now might not be the time, but at least the idea and the planning is there. So I thought that was great. I
think also one thing people can think about is, I think when we think teach online, we think it needs to be teachable, it needs to be membership, it needs to be something big. Remember that you can teach in a Facebook group, you can teach one-on-one over Zoom or Skype. Like, I could teach you how to build the world's most fancy spreadsheet one-on-one.
Yeah.
So I think don't let the fact that you don't have this whole course mapped out stop you thinking about, hey, what do I know that other people don't know? And I guarantee you what you think is super simple to you is super tough for other people. And if you popped up into Facebook and said to people, hey, if I was going to teach something, what would it be? Your friends will know what that thing is. And then just say, hey, would anyone be interested in learning this? And take it from there. It doesn't need to be like, I think people will get really overwhelmed by, oh, I need to create this whole thing. Like, it can just be one-on-one, small group, Facebook group, whatever you need to use.
Mm-hmm. Totally. You're right. You don't need the whole shebang. There are so many tools that help you just do this. I wanted to jump on Instagram Live with you as much as we could use Zoom or Facebook Live. I want people to see that this is a free app. And if your audience is here on Instagram, just show up for them live like we're doing right now on Instagram. So I have received a couple questions just from my poll yesterday. I'm just seeing if there's any that we can talk about now. One question was, do I advertise my products normally? Are people avoiding buying right now? So I think we did talk about that. Let me just see what this one is. How to create work for those in quarantine or with pre-existing conditions to help the economy flow. So she's asking, how do we create work? I think we've addressed that, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also where possible to think about, as much as we don't want our clients to retreat from us and to stop spending, you also want to think about, like, how can I still support other people? So can I share a friend's product? Can I share a friend's post? Can I buy something small from them, to keep that economy flowing? Because then they can spend a bit of money to someone else. And that's how we all kind of keep going as a little mini economy. If everybody goes, oh, I'm not going to spend, that's when everything shuts down.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thinking of what I can implement, such as an online resource to still have an income if I need to halt activities. Perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I'm just popping them up to see if there's anything that we haven't covered yet. Yeah, we talked about that one. Are people buying normally?
I think the only thing I would say about that one is to check your adverts. So if you're running Facebook ads and you've got some really funny thing that's maybe not so funny anymore, is to think about that. So the same kind of tone deaf vibe, go check your content, but also go check your ads.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're beyond the point of ignoring this, and we do need to make sure that the sensitivity is there in our content. I've got one last question for you, and if you're here with us live and you have any questions for Diane, feel free to ask. But now we're talking about this concept of social distancing, because that's what's being recommended as the best way to not even contain this virus, but just mitigate its growth. So are there ways that businesses, online, local, can really adapt to this social distancing recommendation? Any ways that come to mind for you?
Well, I think what's scary for people or uncomfortable for people is this idea of, oh, I might be at home, like on my own, talking to the walls for 2 weeks. And I think obviously you and I are both avid travelers. We like to take our laptop anywhere.
Yeah.
Like you said, we met a couple of years ago in Italy and we still talk on the regular.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that sort of side of it is actually less scary because I'm actively looking at who I'm friends with around the world, and I'm watching their Instagram and commenting and chatting to them in the DM. I have regular friends who I co-work with. So we just get on Zoom and we do like a few pomodoros together. So it doesn't feel like you're completely alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think really like actively engaging in that will help mitigate this feeling of isolation when you're in isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think especially as a business owner, if other people in your family aren't business owners, they aren't really getting what you're going through. They're just feeling ill. You're feeling ill and freaked out and stressed. So having those kind of biz besties that you can call on, but even just your online friends. Like I have some really good online friends. I actually think I saw a couple of them jump on here who I've never met in real life, but who we will Voxer backwards and forwards. We will WhatsApp backwards and forwards. You know, it's almost like we have to actively build our digital friend group. And you can use this with your personal friends as well, right? So it's not just your business friends. When you're in isolation, we have video chat. We have so many resources now that can help you stay connected without having to physically be in the space with people. And also the activities that you wanted to do. My trainer is talking about having like a virtual program so we can all Zoom in and still work out together.
Yeah.
You know, so I think people are really open to this idea. You just have to actively push for it.
Such great points. I've even been thinking, what's my gym going to do? It's the F45 chain, because it's group workouts. And I know they're bringing in practices at the gym. There's no touching. You don't high five people. You shake feet or something.
Yeah.
But it's like, how long can that be okay until there's a point where they actually just have to move their classes online maybe, or think about streaming. So that might sound extreme to someone who's a local business, but I think now is the time to buy the webcam, upgrade your internet if you can, and start testing those abilities that you have to continue your business as is. I read a really interesting article this morning from 10, titled "Coronavirus is a Preview of Our Self-Isolating Future." And I shared it on my Twitter feed. But it's a really interesting look at, you know, Diane and I, like, we have worked from home for years. I have done this since 2014. It's so normal. It's actually harder for me to be in big public spaces now because I'm so used to this. Good or bad, it's just the truth. And I think where we can step up is by helping people with what we know to work by, like, from working from home, if that makes sense. Starting today, starting Monday, even in Canada where I'm in, so many companies have now enforced a work from home policy. So many employees have never worked from home before. They do not know what that means for their lifestyle, for their equipment at home, for their setup, you know,
their productivity.
Exactly. So where I see you and I being able to help is talking to business owners about their marketing, doing things like this, you know, and then also talking to people about the realities of working from home. How can we share what we've learned over the years to help people stay productive and also positive and not feel alone, especially when they're used to working in a coworker environment and now they're home. And so those tips are really great that you shared.
And I think also one thing to add, that you can help the local businesses. As an online business, you are kind of more prepared for this. You've done this, you've worked from home, you've thought this through, we've talked through some things. Ask them, ask your gym, what will you do when we go into isolation? That's what I did with my trainer this morning. I was like, tell me what's going to happen at each of these stages. And he's like, oh, we're making a plan. And I went back and said, tell me again. Like, okay, now what's the plan? And I think us encouraging them to think about it just makes everything stronger for everyone. Because think how much you help them if they've got 2 weeks notice on figuring out how to get online versus that's a last resort.
Some people don't have desks at home. Some people don't have an office chair, you know, their dining table. And you can make do for now, but it's a chance for them to get prepared. It's a chance for companies to stock up and have those have that equipment ready for people to purchase and get ready for. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've shared.
Sure.
I'm just looking at the comments. You've shared such great insights. Kaylee says, I have a Zoom meeting set up tonight with friends. We don't have to feel alone right now, even if we are not physically together. And
Perfect.
That's such a great point, because I feel like my boyfriend and I are entering a phase right now where we're preparing for a level of self-isolation. We've stocked up on food. We've stocked up on medicine. We were out last night, and it's already starting to feel a little bit like a ghost town in Toronto, one of the largest North American cities. And so I think that's what we're headed for the next week, maybe a couple weeks. And as Kaylee said, just because you're alone doesn't mean that you have to actually feel that way. And I think that's really important, is people are scared. People might feel the heaviness of being isolated, but the good news is we have tools like this to continue to stay connected.
Totally. And if anybody's watching and they're like, oh, I have something really specific about my kind of weird, unique business, please feel free to jump into my DMs. I can talk about this topic for hours. So no one will be bothering me. I'm happy to look at a specific business with you, or just help you with ideas of what to get online. Just feel free to shout it out.
Thank you so much. Your handle is at Diane_Mayor. And we will have this replay available. I'll also grab the recording so that people can catch it as well, because there's just such great information. Before we finish up the live, are there any last thoughts that you have? Maybe one thing that you think small business owners should be doing right now in this moment?
So I think right now like, it's today. Like, what can you prepare today? And then tomorrow, what can you prepare tomorrow? This is not like a Monday thing or a Wednesday thing or a 2 weeks from Tuesday thing. This is like, okay, what am I doing today, and how can I prep something? Just prep one thing today. Just start, because I think that's the hardest thing, is to acknowledge that you might have to do this. And then I think my overall rule of thumb still stands, which is be a human.
So good. So right. That reminds me, yesterday I took a couple hours off of my work day to go shop and prepare. So I'll share those stories in a highlight in case you do want to see what kind of goods I purchased to prepare. And I think all you and I can do is continue to talk about these things and continue to share what we can for free to help people as well. So thank you again so much for sharing this information.
Sure.
Maybe we'll do this again next week. We'll see what the situation unfolds to be, because who knows, we're literally taking it a day, an hour at a time right now. Yeah.
If we get a bunch of questions, I'm happy to come back and revisit them. Just whatever we can do to help at this moment in time.
You are the best. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank
you all for joining us. And I'm going to be live again in 15 minutes with Marion, who is in Italy. So we're going to hear her story. See you soon.
I'm excited for that. See you.